So let's talk about this garden. Every garden has a story, and if you're new to gardening, you'll probably create a vision for what you think your garden is going to be like. You might want to be open to that changing because it will change probably. It depends on what plants you have available. It depends on what does well for you, especially if you're gardening and using less resources like water and fertilizer. Then you're going to adjust a lot to the climate you're in, and you're going to adjust to what works well for you. A lot of people, when they think about a garden, they think, I'm going to grow this. I tend to say you should grow what grows well for you. You should grow what wants to grow for you in your space. And of course you can still, influence things towards what you want. I grow a lot of things sometimes I don't even like, and that's probably not that wise either. So you should be cautious in taking any advice from me or anyone else. But let's talk about the story behind this garden, because it's a really cool garden. It's called the pool garden. Maybe I'll call it the cool pool garden. You'll notice there's not much of a pool for swimming. This is called the pool garden because when I got here, it was a big hole with concrete blocks around it, but it was a dirt bottom. And I think the plan was to make it into a pond. So I thought, okay, I'll do that. I'm going to fish farm. So I filled in the bottom with concrete so the water would stay in it. There's other ways that could have done that, like put pigs in it or something, or bentonite. So I had an opportunity to do something a little different, but I was very new to things. This was back in 2004. It's one of the first things I did. So I concreted in the bottom. That pool garden is about, 2 meters deep at most. Maybe a meter and a half, 2 meters deep. And I filled it with water. And I went to a government office, and I didn't speak good Spanish, so this was difficult to do. And I got permission to get from the government some baby fish. It took like half a day to talk to them about that because they're a government office, and they like you to sign forms, and it's just, why can't I just buy the fish? But things have to be difficult sometimes. So I got, I believe it was carp or tilapia, one of the two, because those kinds of fish can do okay if it's not a lot of moving water. And that's a decision you would make if you were going to start fish farming, is what kind of fish you would do. I went with what I had access to, and I went with what might be happy in the space. So we filled it up with water, and the little fish were going to get big, and I was all excited. Well, the problem is that things started dying in it. And you can see this, right? Why did they die in there? I'll tell you that in a second. Lizards died in it. Mice died in it, which isn't that bad. I don't want mice anyway. One time I came out here and there was a dead rabbit and a dead coyote in it. There was no wall at the time around this garden. And I think what happened was the coyote was following the rabbit, chasing it to kill it. And the bunny jumped in the water or fell in the water, and then the coyote went in after it, and then neither one of them could get out because the sides are too steep. That's the problem with this. The sides are too steep, so things can't get out. It's a death trap. And so the coyote and the bunny probably spent their last minutes just paddling around like going, what the heck? Where the heck are we? Why is this happening? And I felt really bad about that because it's not my goal to kill wildlife. I want to increase wildlife. And it was just, a bummer. And I was here alone, and it made me feel sad. And I built a little funeral pyre and burned the coyote on it. I guess it's funny now. It sounds like a Wile E. Coyote kind of thing, but it's a real coyote, not a cartoon coyote. So that sucked. And then I was like, this is not going well. And then my cat died in it, dead. And then I filled that in with dirt. I was like, no more fish farming in this kind of pool. Now, I'm a big fan of hydroponics and aquaponics and all this. There's various ways to do fish farming the right way, but this is not the right way. The primary flaw being the structure itself is not good for that with the straight walls. Stuff dies. That's okay. That's all long past now. We filled it up, and we filled it up with better dirt. We filled up with terra dancino, which is composted oak leaves, some dirt just from here, some dirt later from the chicken coop when I got chickens. and rabbit poo as well. I don't know if any human manure ever went in here. That would be composted human shit. But anyway, this is relatively good dirt, or was. And it was fluffy. Anytime you have fluffier dirt, it usually produces better. And I have theories about that. I think that sometimes people think things work that don't work, and it's just because there's fluffy dirt. Like when you build a raised bed, one of the reasons they do well isn't because it's raised. It could do well lower. There's benefits maybe to being raised, like you can get at it easier. But it's because you put better dirt there, probably. If you build a swale, permaculture people are really into swales. They think they're magic. And they're good, and I use them in a big scale. I've had bulldozers dig swales, and I've had people dig swales with shovels. But I think there's something that gives you a false positive impression that they're valuable. And that is that when you dig the dirt to the downhill side and then a bunch of stuff grows there, it's partly just because it's loose dirt. And I know that because I've tested other spots where it didn't get extra water, there was no swale, but loose dirt was way more productive because all those nutrients have been dug up and there's air in there and the roots can zoom through it. So this was a really successful garden for some time. In here, let's do an inventory of what we've got. I've got some peppers I really like. I think these are called apple peppers. Some people call them that. They're yellow. I'm tempted to call them habanero, but that's maybe not right. What's the name? I forgot. But just say it.
Padron. Isn't it the Padron?
Padron?
Yeah.
That doesn't sound quite right.
Chile de Padron?
No.
Okay.
Anyway, but they're perennial, which I really like. I'm big time into perennials, not so much into annuals. And I've got a few succulents in here. Mostly, though, we've ignored this. Oh, there's also chayote, which is a green fruit that is smooth. I call it like a butt fruit because it looks like a little butt there a little bit. I never heard of them in Seattle, but I came here and there was chayotes. And I was like, oh, I'll grow chayotes. Also because if you don't eat your chayote, which you might not eat it because you don't hardly know what it is because you're not Mexican, it starts to sprout off a little sprout. And then you're like, oh, it's kind of like a potato or something. I can just stick it in the ground. And so that's what I did. I stuck those chayotes in the ground. And they grew. And then I got fruit. And all of the fruit was eaten by squirrels. And that upset me. Tried that a couple times. But the squirrels are always there. And then there's a little chayote that's white. And I thought, oh, that's so cute and they're tender. I'll try those. And the squirrels like those even more. So, one time I was in the market, and I go with whatever's interesting. And there's this spiky chayote. It looks like something you'd throw at someone to hurt them. Looks like a bomb or something. And you can barely pick them up. They're actually kind of harsh. They don't pierce your skin, but it sure feels like they're gonna. So I planted some of those. And those the squirrels didn't eat. It took me over 4 years to figure that out. But I was busy doing other things. But now I can grow chayotes. So now my goal is to plant those all over the place because they don't need any water. They have a big tuber beneath the ground, or a camote or whatever, a big thing. And then they shoot out in the rains, and then they have all these fruits, and you just easily pick them, and they last a long time. So they're just an amazing thing. That's over on the other side of this garden. Now, this year, some people came, and I was in town recovering from an accident that I had, and they were available labor, and they were really excited to start gardening. And so we talked about, okay, well, where do you want to garden and what works for them? And they're not experienced. And so the pool garden was a great choice. And there's another reason why it was a great choice, and that's because a problem I have here is that pocket gophers that live under the ground will come and eat anything under the ground. Like you could have 80% of a garden that they'll just eat in a night. And they'll take growing baby fruit trees and eat the roots, and you find your fruit trees dead that you spent 2 years growing. So it's pretty harsh, these little pocket gophers. So in here, the theory is the pocket gophers can't get in here very easily. And if they were in here, they make kind of a mound like a mole would, and we would notice them, and we would very specifically kill them, which I realize isn't a very nice thing to do. But after you've had tons of crops get destroyed by this animal, you start, wondering if you have like a squirrel and tusa farm instead of a farm that grows food for some people. And I'm okay with wildlife getting a bunch of food, but I need food for people too, especially this year. So this year, it got cleaned out, all the weeds and stuff that had overtaken it. We left the plants that were kind of overgrown, like the peppers that I really like, and we left the chayotes, and we did some very specific sprouts in here that got watered by hand. Now normally I wait for the rains and I just plant things in the ground, and that's really my preference, but we wanted to get started early this year because these people were excited and because we want to start growing annuals, which is not normally what I care about, right? I think long term, I like to grow nut trees. But annuals are really exciting, and you know, the lettuce greens. We've got in here some radishes, some broccoli. Got a native plant back in there, jicama. Jicama is really cool. We've tried to grow that before without success, so hopefully this time we'll have success. One of the problems we had was that we came out here and mysteriously a whole bunch of the baby plants were just chopped right off and gone. It's like a murder mystery. Something was coming and murdering these plants. Probably grazing vegans. Nah, vegans are bigger than that. But something was doing it. And so we came out here and we were trying to figure out what was doing it. Is a bird doing it? Is it a rat or a mouse? Is it, it's not a tusa or pocket gopher. It could be a bunny. Yeah, because there's wild rabbits here. And I don't mind, again, I don't mind if they eat stuff. I like them. But they can't like eat everything, and in this case it was very specifically planted important plants, especially for these new gardeners, you know, who are being directly attacked by whoever it was. We never figured it out. We even set a rat trap. We tried to put little screens over them, but they're kind of, you know, not really well blocked, and if you're an animal out in the forest, you're hardcore, you know, and if some humans want to hide some food from you, you can usually get to it. So they obliterated a whole bunch of seedlings. Luckily, we have other seedlings in buckets that are protected against things. They don't get things in there eating them. And we'll wait till those are bigger and put those out here when the rains come and hope we do better. So, the future of this garden. Oh, we also got over here, and I forgot. We've got a row of tomatoes over here. They grow really well here. A lot of people say that you have to have a greenhouse to grow tomatoes. That is false. What you have to do is do things at the right time with the right resources, and you can grow lots of tomatoes during part of the year. That's still partly theoretical because I've grown a little bit of tomatoes, but I've done it my way. So my next goal is to step that up, because right now we're eating tomatoes out of here instead of buying them from off the property. That's a huge success. I've always bought tomatoes. So we got them in here. We'll try different kinds of tomatoes. We have done that in the past as well and had some success. This garden has been full of tomatoes before. We tried Oaxacan tomatoes that are lumpy and weird. You know, the heirloom varieties, generally people want to focus on those. You know, I'd like to get, you know, different colored tomatoes. There's like black tomatoes. There's weird tomatoes out there. And guess what? You know where tomatoes come from? They come from Mexico. And so that's all the more reason to rediscover how to grow them in a really natural way, like indigenous people did here long ago, because they were probably doing fairly simple plant breeding, you know, even just by selecting the fruits that they like, and then that seed gets propagated. So that's kind of the way we want to garden, is the really old ways, but with the scientific knowledge we have now about how to mix genetics and things like that. Another plant back here that I'm very excited about is the grape. It's going to go up this trellis. There's not a lot of people with grapes down here. In fact, I don't know of anyone. So I want grapes for eating and grapes for wine, both. I would love to walk out here and just have a snack. I remember when I was a kid, we had a trellis and it was just full of grapes during part of the year. And for me as a kid, it was fantastic to go out there and just snack on it. So anyway, this is an evolution of a garden. I don't know what will happen to it next. The rains are coming. We still have space in here, so we're still going to plant lots more. Might be nice to get some ground covers in spots like out here. I don't know what will happen. We got a peach tree in here. What am I forgetting? There's tomatoes. Oh, tomatillos, which is like a tomato but weirder. and this is just a succulent. This can probably get pulled out of here. Because the other thing that this garden has that's unusual, because you always want to use each space for its highest value, is it has a gate to keep dogs out. That's really cool. And it also has this wall around it. Are you in the garden? Yes, you are. Hey, honey. And so this provides thermal mass. So there's some types of plants that will grow in here better than in other places because it's a microclimate. And I found that nearby we've planted some pitayas, for example. Those are dragon fruit. It's this long, skinny cactus that likes to crawl up a wall. Those I think are going to do well here. We haven't tried those here yet. Now I'm going to mention one other thing before I wrap this up. On the side of this garden, there's another garden. It's currently called the Blackberry Garden because I let it overgrow with blackberries. I bought about 20 blackberry plants and put them all around in the forest. This is the only one that grew a huge amount, that grew really well. And so what we did this year, because we have some other uses for this garden, is we dug up those blackberry roots that are really better developed, and we put them out by the road. We put them in a spot where the water going down the dirt road goes into a gully, and I think that's going to give them a better spot for them to thrive, because there's wild blackberries, and the only place I ever see those is up on the road to go to another town. And so I'm trying to, figure they're in the same family, and so we're still going to have some in here as well. We've also got an avocado tree here. I don't know if I should shape that or leave it as it is. On the other side, we've got bamboo that we're harvesting and putting underground. We're burying poles of it in places that are damper, and they'll grow faster. So there's a lot of more stuff to do in that garden. We've got some buckets, I think, with ginger and turmeric, because those are, ginger is fairly expensive. And if we do it right, if we do it the right way, it should be really easy to grow. It might not be the fastest thing, but I think we can do it. And then turmeric is a spice, I guess, and that would be great to get going. It has little bulby things as well. Looks like a weird potato. So yeah, that's the state of this garden right now. I hope that as you think about your own gardens, evaluating this one and looking at its evolution gives you some idea of choices you could be making as you change your own space and you look for opportunities and you see things fail, and then you change your strategy and you start to have more success. Good luck to you.